Hi, my name is Natasha,
And I'm Cory.
and this is our podcast, We Are Not Afraid. Today's episode, number 4, we'll be talking about serious and funny horror movies. Both serious and funny horrors have their strengths and weaknesses, depending on what you're looking for in a horror experience.
Yeah, I think it's the type of thing that it's a mood thing. Sometimes those serious movies is what you're looking for. You want to be scared. But sometimes you want a funny movie with a little bit of stupid violence and stupid humor.
Yeah, and there's like a good thing about each of them. There's a good thing, there's a pros and the cons, right?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, so like some of the serious ones would be like Hereditary and The Exorcist, The Witch, stuff like that. That most of the pros are like immersive and intense scripts and atmosphere and emotional connections, right? And then you have the funny stuff like Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2.
Shaun of the Dead. One that I haven't seen, maybe you've seen it.
Army of Darkness.
Gosh, where it's more of a balance, fear, and fun. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one that we kind of liked or disliked.
Yeah.
Just to start this off, I'm not really into a lot of the humor movies, horror movies. I'm more of the serious, scary.
Well, yeah, but what about a movie that has some humor in it as opposed to like a straight up parody movie, like Scary Movie?
Yeah, so I don't mind if there's humor. Like I said, I like Nightmare on Elm Street because there's humor in it. It's funny. And
but that's not its intention.
No, but there's funny like jokes or hints or. But what I don't like is like parody. Like Scary Movie to me, it just feels forced. Like I don't know. It's just
it's supposed to be. It's
just not funny for me.
Yeah, they're making fun of what is supposed to be serious movies.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about how it works and how it like there's goods and bads and let's talk a little bit about some of the like serious movies.
Okay.
Some of it that did work. So a lot of the movies have like a deep psychological horror,
right,
which kind of touches on how the movie was builds on dread and jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like cinematic styles, which is a lot of lighting, a lot of cinematography and sounds, where sometimes when you're watching a movie and the music is more eerie than the actual scene.
Well, I've noticed in some recent movies we've watched that the movie's music actually catches the dog's attention.
Yes.
And it gets the dog watching the movie, and I guess it affects the simple-minded because she got sucked right into it.
Well, because it does this like music that kind of like captivates the audience, and then you're watching the whatever's happening on the screen, and you're so immersed in the like
the mood that's being set.
Exactly, the atmosphere, the mood, the cinematography of it all. Kind of just gravitates you, right? It just gravitates you to the screen. What else works is like they have here is called The Power of a Slow Burn.
Yeah.
Which kind of builds the suspense and kind of drags you in there. Those are great too.
So actually, the movie we watched yesterday was called Heretic, starring Hugh Grant. And that movie, you said it was kind of boring, but I think that kind of describes a slow burn in a movie.
Yeah.
They took a while to get to the point. Mm-hmm. You knew all along that those girls were in trouble. Mm-hmm. But they never really gave you 100% that that's what was going to happen. It was a slow burn to get them in the house, to get them down into the basement, to choose which way they're going to go.
It was more of a psychological fear than it was.
But it was a very serious movie. There was no funny business in that movie.
No, there was no humor.
No.
Actually, there was a little bit. It was a very dry humor.
Yeah, and it was the killer trying to be humorous to put the girls at ease.
Yeah.
Because he was going to kill them.
Or a point that he was trying to do, which you and I were, at one point were like, oh, burn. Because it was just like he pointed out a fact that was like,
oh, that too, yeah.
So that was funny. Another point that works for usually serious movies is iconic performances. And usually it's like a Jack Nicholson in The Shining. And those really are what really elevates a movie.
Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes. Everybody knows that line. Hello, Clarice.
Yeah. And even some of his performance can be considered a little comedic.
Yeah, he plays a little bit of everything
because
but...
he's trying to be creepy in kind of like a funny way. I think. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And he played another one, and I go back to it again. The Right. He plays the priest, and if you've seen the movie, he plays a priest that gets possessed, and it's really I don't know. He's a great actor. I don't care what anybody says. He's a fantastic actor, and he really brings you into that emotion, right? Into that fear. And so I think for serious horror movies, those kind of deep psychological horror, cinematic type, the power of a slow burn and an iconic performances really tie those types of movies like serious movies. And some of the ones we were talking about is like The Witch, The Shining, The Exorcist. There's so many.
Obviously you want to have a more serious tone to a legitimate horror movie. So most horror movies are more serious with very little instances of comedy.
And like I said, comedy in a movie is different than a parody. Now parodies I don't get into. It's just too forced for me. I don't like it. But what does work in a funny horror? They were talking about balancing comedy and horror. So it's important to balance those out. You want to make sure that it's scary enough that it still captivates you, but I think humor kind of controls the tension, I think, in a movie.
Yeah. One example that you mentioned in the beginning was Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, Evil Dead 2 scared the shit out of me because that was the kind of movie that it used atmosphere and it used sound and music to show the demon that was haunting the people in the woods, and it would have the fog rolling in on the ground and it come up really fast on them. You never actually saw what it was. But then when Bruce Campbell, the main character, he got possessed by it and he started going crazy, that's where his slapstick comedy started coming in. And he had to like cut off his arm and he attached the chainsaw to kill the demon. And then it followed up with Army of Darkness, which was a complete slapstick movie. Like that had no, like it had horror elements to it, but it was more along the lines of a comedy at that point.
Yeah, and it was. And then you have like Scary Movie, which is a parody from Scream.
Yes. And they also parody, a lot of the plot comes from I Know What You Did Last Summer as well.
Yeah, I think it's like they take a few bits of each of the movies in the like 90s, early 2000s, and they kind of splice together. I don't know. The first one was okay. The second one, I was like, okay, this is...
And then when Charlie Sheen got involved, it just went downhill from there.
Yeah, it just... I don't know. I didn't really enjoy those movies that much, but there's people that love those movies and they think they're really great. I personally just don't connect with them. Ready or Not, I know that some people don't think that it's comedy, but that movie had a little bit of humor where they were chasing her.
I don't
got married
remember that
to
being humorous. I thought it was
it had good jokes. It had good little like burns and good little like tit for tat kind of funny humor.
That's the one where she married the guy, but then in order to be part of the family, she had to survive them trying to kill her or something, right?
They hunted her down. Yeah, she was hunted and she had to survive. Yeah, she had to survive the night.
Right.
Yeah, which is really a good movie, by the way. Another part of what works for horror movies: smart satire versus dumb parody.
Yeah. Can we talk about a dumb parody?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Dracula, Dead and Loving It, starring Leslie Nielsen?
No.
So it was kind of like that one we watched a couple weeks ago with Leslie Nielsen. I can't remember the name of it now. It was that bad.
With Leslie Nielsen?
Yeah.
Oh, Naked Gun? No.
No, not Naked Gun. It was another parody movie that he did but it was about horror movies.
It was The Exorcist one.
The Exorcist. It'll come back. But yeah, he did an Exorcist parody, and he's also done Dracula parody. And sometimes those are hit or miss. Those movies like Airplane and Naked Gun.
Those are not horror.
They're based on horror.
Repossessed.
Repossessed
That
was really
the funny
bad.
one.
And so was Dracula Dead and Loving It.
I think and it's funny because Linda Blair's in it, and it's just funny. It's really not meant.
It's like ironic comedy, right?
I've never seen it. Maybe you have. Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I have seen that movie once, and it's not the best. I've only watched it once. It's about two guys. They're like hillbillies. I guess they uncover some demons on their farm or something and wind up fighting them. It's really stupid. I never gave it another chance.
That's the whole point of these movies, right?
Yeah.
It's either you like them or you don't. There's
like there's no really best or worst. Like for me, I think some of the best funny horror movies, and you're going to completely disagree, is the Leprechaun series.
I don't like the Leprechaun series.
And they get really stupid, especially when he goes to space, then he goes to the hood, then he goes back to the hood with Ice-T.
Oh my god. This is why so I don't like these movies.
But the Leprechaun is funny.
Like, there's a lot of funny horror movies out there. So if you don't like horror, but you still want a little bit of a fear factor, then these are great for you.
And The Cabin in the Woods is another one that
I didn't mind that one.
I think is pretty good. It comes from Joss Whedon. Kind of like
Gremlins is one
virtual
of them.
thing. Gremlins
so
is Gremlins horror, or is Gremlins
considered
comedy?
horror. It's considered.
It's a classic
because of the little gremlin guys.
Well, the little
crazy.
gremlin guys are trying to kill people on Christmas.
Yeah, I still like Gizmo. He was cute. Yeah, so there's a lot out there. So if you don't like horror movies, there's always those options.
Yeah.
So some of the questions I have here is what makes a horror movie?
Right.
Is it parodies? Is it subtle humor?
You mean what makes a funny horror movie?
Yeah, sorry, a comedy. Yeah. Sorry, yes. What makes a funny horror movie?
Well, I think it's all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it can go too overboard, because if you go too overboard with the comedy, then you end up with something stupid like a parody. It just goes full-born parody. Scary Movie, Dracula Dead and Loving It, Repossessed, all those other we just saw on Netflix, a Twilight parody, and like these vampire parodies and stuff. Like, they're all.
I think if there's too much humor, though, it kind of loses that Scary Movie aspect. So there has to be a balance of what, like.
Actually, I think Scream kind of balances that.
Yes,
because it has.
Yeah,
it's a straight up serious slasher flick, but it also kind of has like that ironic humor, like the rules of surviving a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Zombieland.
Yeah.
That's not a parody, but it's, it has humorous overtones during a zombie apocalypse.
So let's change gears a little bit.
Okay.
So we're talking about movies. Most of the TV series that we watch that are paranormal, scary movies have a lot of humor in them. And I think for TV, it works. It has to have humor to continuously captivate people. But then we watched the show called Evil on Paramount Plus, which doesn't really have a lot of humor in it.
I think it does.
Really?
Yeah,
only
I
when
think
Leland's
because they
on
do
TV.
Like some. We laugh at
Leland,
bad situations, but they have characters that are kind of
comic
humorous, comic relief.
But not
even
as
when
much.
They're doing bad things, they're doing it in a way that's like, oh, come on, like, this is kind of cheesy.
Like, I was watching Riverdale, and at first it didn't start off as horror. I was like, okay, but then it has like a little bit of scary moments. And it ties in with Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix, the newer one.
Yeah.
It all kind of in the same universe. And Riverdale kind of starts off as, like Jughead. Jughead. And all those characters, Betty and all those characters.
Betty and Veronica.
And it starts off all like bubblegum and twinkle lights.
Your typical
high
school drama.
But then it kind of like navigates to like, then there's at one point it becomes like a cult in there, and then it becomes like there's murder sprees, and then there's like, and then it goes a little bit supernatural.
I never got into those shows
because it's hard to get into. So once you get into it, you kind of just, okay, let me keep watching, and then it gets better and better and better and better. And then you have Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which starts off right away as supernatural, but it becomes darker and darker and darker, which captivates the audience more.
Right.
And then you have the classic Buffy, and Buffy has a lot of humor in it.
Buffy does have a lot of humor.
And then there's some episodes where there's absolutely no humor in it.
It's very serious.
And it's very serious, very dreadful, right?
Supernatural,
it depends. It was kind of a hit and miss. Most episodes did have a little
started
bit of humor.
out very serious, and then it kind of became a parody of itself.
Yeah.
Because they brought in like the storyline of basically God was writing their story and publishing it in books, and they were getting fans, and they're reading their own fiction, and it got really funny that way.
Right. Supernatural is one of my favorite shows. It's I don't know. It brings a lot of story. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of. I think
You get invested in the
I think they
characters.
ended it very well. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was finally the only show that I think ended well. Buffy, they rushed it. Angel,
Angel got canceled.
it,
It ended on a cliffhanger.
yeah,
It
it's
should have
so
had another
it
season.
should have had one more season to tie it all up, but
Yeah,
anyways. So yeah, I think for TV
yeah.
there has to be a little bit of
I think it
humor.
works better for TV.
Yeah. Movies, it really depends on what you like.
Yeah.
And I think serious for me and more humor for you. All right, let's talk about what doesn't work on some of these. So back to the movies. So serious horror movies, what failed? It's trying too hard to be scary.
Okay.
Now, Slender Man
Slender Man
and Bye
is
Bye
terrible.
Man. I didn't like Candyman either. I think they were trying too hard. On the original, I'm talking about the
Really?
original. I thought it was just trying a little too hard.
But I don't think Candyman was supposed to be funny at all.
No, I'm talking about scary, serious movies.
Oh, to be serious.
Yes.
Trying to be
Yeah,
serious.
they,
Oh
what they
yeah.
failed
Okay.
on was
I gotcha.
trying too hard to be scary. I think
Yeah.
those types of movies was just a little bit too much. Didn't need so much in there. I don't know. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
Bad writing and predictable jump scares. And we talked about
Predictability.
this already.
Yeah, it's a trope in horror. It's almost as if you're looking for the predictable moments when
Yeah.
you're watching a
Truth or
movie.
Dare is one of them where you pretty much know what's going to happen before.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I think I've said this before, but Hollywood does a really poor job of telling you when there's a jump scare coming. Like, you know when the jump scare's coming. You pretty much know.
Yeah, you
The
know.
music starts changing, everybody starts getting quiet, and yeah, okay. Wasted potential. In the movie they reference is the devil inside. When an idea sounds good, but the execution ruins it. I remember watching this movie and I kind of was like, I don't know.
I don't know if I've seen this. I might need my memory jogged.
It's pretty much another possession movie.
Okay.
It's a girl. She's about 20. She seeks the truth about a terrible night. Isabella travels to an Italian hospital and criminally insane. Pretty much her mother was mentally ill, but they think she was possessed. And she kind of has to figure out all that. It wasn't, it was
Okay,
the
no, I have
story.
not seen this
The
movie.
story just lacked of it. It's such another like demon movie. But again, this is why sometimes it
Well,
fails
one of the
because
notes that I have about this movie says that it ends abruptly
yeah,
with a frustrating non-ending. And that's a huge thing. A
well, that's
few
what
movies
bad
have.
writing happens, right? It's like, why do you end it that way?
Yeah, without a conclusion or an ending that just doesn't tie into the overall story.
Just bad writing. When they end of like everybody likes M. Night Shyamalan or whatever you say his name. The way he writes his stories and ends his movies just.
Well, that's the plot twists, right? Plot twists in a serious movie can either be a positive or it can be a complete negative.
Yeah. Something that makes it fail for humor, funny horrors, is unfunny spoofs. Why do a parody if you're not gonna make it funny? If it's you're just trying too hard, force jokes that just kill the horror. Like if it just doesn't make sense to do the horror, the humor, sorry, or the joke.
Yeah,
then don't do it at all. It's
we're kind of beating the parody to death here, but
it's too silly. Like it's too much. I don't know. I just Leprechaun in the Hood. They're like it's so bad it's good. It's so much of a bad horror comedy.
Yeah,
but still it works. I guess
the whole thing with Leprechaun is he's kind of cut in the same cloth as Freddy Krueger. He's shooting out one-liners as he's killing people, looking for his gold. Somebody's always got his gold, so he's just killing people and making stupid jokes as he does it. And they keep putting him in stupider situations, but they kind of rectified that years ago. They rebooted the series. They changed the actor. It's not Warwick Davis anymore. It was someone else. And they changed the tone of the character to be more serious and more violent. So that kind of changed. Sometimes horror movie franchise will go through changes from serious to funny and back.
Yes. Like Beetlejuice?
I think the original Beetlejuice kind of balances out.
Both, yeah. I liked it.
Serious, some jump scares, and some comedy as well.
Yeah, they had some good comedy in there. I think it was funny. The new one I haven't seen, so I can't speak for it.
No, we haven't watched it yet. It's on the list.
But I did like the original.
Yeah.
So here's a question question for you. If you had to introduce someone to horror, would you start them with a serious or a funny horror movie? Like if someone is brand new to horror.
It depends on the person. If you're trying to convince a person that says, I don't like horror movies, I'm never watching a scary movie, I never watch them, then I would try to ease them in with, maybe one with a little more of a funny plot. Maybe even start with a parody movie.
Like scary movie?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, I've seen that scene before, or the waza. These are kind of stupid things that you remember from seeing a commercial on TV or something, right? Ease them into that, and as you're watching the movie with them, you can say, oh well, in the real movie, this is what they're making fun of, but it actually kind of went like this. And then we go, oh yeah, this is based on something else, oh maybe we'll watch that next. So maybe you can ease them in with a parody and then hook them with the blood and gore.
I think a lot of people have watched parodies. I just think, for me, if I was introducing someone who doesn't like horror movies, or they say they don't watch horror movies because they're scared or they don't like that stuff, I think I would start them off not with a parody because it doesn't show why we like horror. I think I would start with something that's funny, that has funny moments, that does have like jump scares and gore and all that stuff, but that is funny at the same time. So I think I would probably
Shaun of the Dead.
Start with something like Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead is so funny.
Even like,
but it's very violent.
Even
too.
like Scream, it has good, funny moments, and it's not too scary. It is pretty terrifying, but it's not scary. I think I would start with that. Future of horror. Do you think there's more horror comedies on the rise, or do you think they're just kind of shifting back to serious?
I think that
just with the new movies coming out that we've seen recently,
mainstream movies can maybe draw people in a little more with a comedy or funny elements. Maybe starring a more comedic actor.
But do you see, like, the movies coming out now that are coming out in the future? I find there's more, they're going back to serious. They're not putting out too many funny, humorous horror movies.
Well, that's because you don't watch Tubi. And that's usually where they end up.
Tubi is the exception.
Sharknado 1 through 10, or how many there is.
Why is there 10 of those?
Why does Sharknado exist?
Because people have fear of sharks.
Yeah.
So they just tie into that. But why is there 10?
Do you think those type of movies are considered comedies or just bad?
They're comedically bad.
Comedically bad. They're so bad, they're funny.
Tubi is the best place for those movies.
Oh, yeah.
Like the B-listing.
Well, that's where you find the kind of movies are like, who thought this was a good idea?
There's a lot of those. So let's close this out as, do you think that comedy should be in horror?
Yes, I do. 100%.
Yes, I agree. Do you think there should be more parodies of the horror movies?
I think if they're done right, and I think if the right movies are parodied, yes.
I'm still with don't touch it if it's not broken. Do a funny movie that ties into that movie that you're trying to parody. What's your favorite funny movie? Funny horror movie?
That's a good question. Favorite funny horror movie? I'd say the Leprechaun series.
You do like that, don't you?
Yeah. it falls under the category of it's so bad, it's funny.
I thought you would have went like the Chucky route.
Chucky,
because he's funny.
He didn't start out funny.
No, but
he didn't quite get funny until Bride of Chucky.
That was stupid. That was such a stupid movie.
And then from there, it's just been straight up comedy with blood and guts.
See, for me, if it was a funny horror, I'm still with Night on Elm Street because it's funny. And I think for parody, if I was to choose one, it would have to be a scary movie. But it hit and miss on that one.
All right, that's fair.
Hit and miss. Again, I don't like it's very hard for me to get into comedy movies itself, and I'm just a very serious person apparently.
Well, that's the whole debate. Serious or funny, it's all up to the viewer and what you're feeling in the moment and what you're not feeling.
You might like it in the movie and you might not. Sometimes it's not warranted to be in the movie and you're like, why did they make that? It was a big time that makes no sense.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you need that tension cutter, and that's where writers think we should put some humor.
That's true.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. And let us know if you have any suggestions on good, funny humor horror stories.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it. I'm sure there's a whole bunch that we've missed.
Mainly because I don't watch them.
You don't watch them? And
but
I only did one day's worth of research.
Yeah. The next episode will be about religious movies, shows, and demons and spirits. So this one's going to be a
Ooh,
fun one.
spooky.
I think it might be longer than 30 minutes, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, we'll see.
This will be my type of discussion on
Okay.
what's real and what's not. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all those who supported us. Please like, share, subscribe to our
Subscribe,
podcast
follow.
for updates.
All right.
Well, thank you
That's
so much.
it.
All right. Bye, guys.
Peace out.
We are not afraid, we won't turn away. Bring on the nightmares, we love to play. Bring on the nightmares, we love to play.